Whoa!
What's
Look at
up?
the squad.
Hey,
What's up, ladies and gents?
how you guys doing on this day off?
This is technically a day off. Were you working today, Doug?
Yeah, yeah, because
Technically working today as well. Actually, I don't have today off. I mean, we have it off, but it's an informal like
exactly.
It's like just in case, right?
Yeah, it's like keep an eye on your emails because something came through and we have to work on it this weekend.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is.
Yep.
Reed,
But
are you work as a freelance fucking writer? Are you working?
Yeah, I fucking had notes and shit all week, which has been annoying, but I've been.
You've had what shit all week? You broke out a little bit there.
Oh, notes. Can you hear me? Is this a proper distance? How's my sound?
It's a proper distance, but the internet. Well, let's hope it doesn't get sketchy.
Yeah, no, I got this new show thing project. It's a long story, but I have a new script and there's notes and everyone's trying to get stuff basically, like in line for Monday, which means
Cool.
they expect everybody to work throughout, from before Christmas, which if you complain, you're a puss who doesn't want to work.
I mean,
and you go like, all right, yeah, like it makes sense.
This is such a perfect introduction to the episode today.
No, it's true because everybody, we're all like working throughout this break because everyone wants to be ready to go on January 4th on Monday,
right
when it's back on. It's not like that first week back is not like let's take a week to get our groove on. It's like no. It's
you know
like
what I've noticed that reminds me of what you're saying is like it's like everybody is preparing now before Monday. And like
that's
over
true.
the weekends, that if you're not doing that too, you come off like a dipshit on Monday.
Right.
Yeah. If it's true.
It sucks. Like I've noticed that too, and I'm not a writer, and it's not as nearly as important kind of stuff. But like even when I like show up on a regular Monday, if I haven't like gotten my ducks in a row for like a couple hours on Sunday, I sound like a pretty dumb shit.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that's kind of the nut of it all, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that a term the kids are saying? The nut of it all?
That is a term kids are saying. Kids are saying that's a nut of it all.
Anyway,
this is actually very pertinent to what we're going to be talking about today. This is Did You Reddit, a weekly podcast about the internet by way of Reddit, the front page of the internet. My name is It's Your Dad.
I'm Dog Boobs.
My feet down here in the studio, just holding it down. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Woo! Are you in the ranch dressing studios or are you elsewhere?
Yeah, that's a couple of wood projects that I'm wrapping up that are basically looking nice. Remember those pieces of lumber I showed you guys a couple weeks ago?
Yes.
Yeah, I do remember that lumber.
They turned into a table.
Gorgeous.
Crazy.
Look at that.
That's some Northern European oak, I think.
That is beautiful. I love that tone wood.
It's just white oak. It's I would say kind of North America's best wood. I like it. Very durable. It's very hard. It's got a nice look, nice touch. It's expensive,
Beautiful.
but it'll last.
I feel like
forever.
you know a lot. You know a lot about wood and woodworking that I didn't realize.
I'm starting to get better. I feel like I'm starting to get a little bit better at it. Like just after years, like I'm like turning the corner to like not a total piece of shit. I'm like one level above. It's such a complicated thing. Every video I watch, I'm like, oh man, these guys are so good.
Yeah.
And I'm just a hobbyist.
You get good at over time. And as they say, if you love it, it's not work, right? Isn't that the phrase works?
That's
so
what
tell that to my low back. You know what I mean?
Dude, you don't have to tell me about the lower back. I've been having insane lower back problems. But anyway, so we started talking about work very specifically. I don't think we didn't plan that, but it's actually a perfect segue into what we're talking about today. Today, we're going to be reviewing the subreddit anti-work, which Dog was the one who brought up, somewhat unsurprisingly. But I think it's an interesting sub because even though it is principally a subreddit that's kind of it's like a subreddit for people making memes and kind of making commentary about like not even not liking their job as much as like not liking the idea of being forced to work. It's kind of a combination of like late stage capitalism, the kind of Bernie Sanders wing of Reddit. It's a little bit of that like hive.
Yeah.
But the more that you get into it, what I really love about the subreddit is it is based in. It feels like it's fundamentally based in a movement, in an intellectual thought. And they keep that close to home, so it doesn't really, even though it might be mostly memes and mostly kind of like softball kind of posts, the sidebar has 7 essays, 6 essays in a website that are all kind of about the methodology of anti-work, which is not new, so so that's what we're going to be talking about today, which I do think is very pertinent to this holiday, and I think it's kind of pertinent to 2020 in general because there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of issue. I mean, we have the stimulus check, of course, but then also I think I can relate to this. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but there's this sensation of, oh, I just need to work and be thankful for it, that kind of resonated through 2020 because of so many people being out of work.
Yeah.
Which then kind of creates a little bit more of a cycle of the anti-work enemy, I think. So
true.
Yeah, that's a bigger yes. It's like if you have a job, now I'm going to sort of take advantage of it. That you're employed because you're lucky to be employed. So now I'm going to make you even more my slave. But we got to get into all that.
Yes, we are going to get into all that. Do we want to talk at all about the front page? I know this is.
I think we have to because it's New Year's Eve. We got to tell people today we're all going out clubbing. We're all going out dancing. We're hitting.
Yes.
We're taking.
Did you read it? Gavin Newsom. See you at the club.
Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, dude. Mayor all Garcetti, Garcheddar cheese. All of them did that from. I love people on politicians. It feels so good, right? I don't know why. Why does it feel so good?
Hating on politicians?
I went blank there for a second.
Freed, I think your feed is like a little raggedy right now. Did you do something different with your internet?
No.
Damn. Personal hotspot?
I could try it. It feels risky.
I know.
Try it. Right now it's like cutting in and out from your end. So I'm not sure what that is. Are you getting that too, Doug? Mine's clear, right? Okay.
Yeah, I hear it too. It sounds like a little bit like tin room and then words are cutting out.
All right, let me switch line.
But in the meantime, I'm looking at the front page here. And I've been really preoccupied with anti-work this week for obvious reasons. But I've seen a lot of really sweet things too from everybody's Christmas, and like a puppy pranking his asshole older dog siblings, and like dads getting adorable. Like he got this one dad got the exact same thing for Christmas that he was already wearing when he was picking up the present.
Okay.
Which seems like a real dad thing to do.
We'll pull that
he
up.
Just loves his Under Armour.
Oh, I did see this. This reminded me of my stepdad Rick. Which I didn't. I'm.
Oh, Rick, whatever. Dude. Yeah, what's he up to?
Whatever.
You're not my real dad, Rick.
He's fine. He does not like. Rick's number one thing is he does not at all. Like, this is his number one thing, and he considers getting COVID tests emasculating, in my opinion. So every time there's a big family gathering, he's like, I don't need to get a test. Why do I need to get a test? No, we don't need to do tests. And so there's always a big stink anytime there's a big family gathering. And then as a so for Christmas this year, I decided to I didn't get him anything last year. I don't think anybody got him anything this year except for me. Which is kind of sad, but also kind of hilarious. But I got him something he wanted, and then something that would emasculate him. So yeah. And the thing that I got him that would emasculate him, because he's a huge football guy, was a soccer shirt, which I thought was hilarious. So, but he seemed to enjoy it. So yeah. So, but that's definitely got some stepdad Rick energy. I also thought that was hilarious. I thought that was like it's such a dad thing too. Like that you don't have. I don't know when this happens, and maybe it's because I don't have kids, and I think that there's something about. It's interesting because I think that when you don't have kids, you don't do parenting things, but some of the things that your parents do or did, you see yourself falling into regardless, almost as a you can see where at a certain point in life they just kind of got like, I don't want to think about it anymore. Give me whatever. Doesn't matter. You know?
Yeah.
And that's such a parent thing. And I feel that now too, right? Where I'm like, there's not really anything where I'm just like,
I need this.
I really need that thing, or I really want that thing. I've always wanted that thing, and I can't buy it for myself. There's just there's nothing that you can't really buy for yourself. I mean, which kind of is a little bit of the anti-work message in a weird, freaky way.
Right.
Oh God. Chef's kiss. Timmy P. Bass is our goddamn guy. Timmy P. Bass.
Here for us, Timmy.
He's here for us. I love him. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Timmy.
Glad you're
Timmy,
here.
the bass fisherman.
Yes.
Timmy Bass Fisherman. But that was what was I gonna say? We were talking about gifts.
What do you got, dog boobs, on the front page?
Well,
oh yeah.
Other than that dad picture, I was looking at a lot of morbid reality too, which was kind of sad.
Why are you in the morbid reality zone? Is it like that time of year, or what is the thing that's making you kind of go in that direction?
Yeah, it's been not a traditional holiday season for me. So I've been staying with my mom. My mom's been sick, so I'm staying helping her. My brother, he broke his collarbone like a week before Christmas.
Oh.
So he was stuck in New York, and which was probably really good anyway, because COVID and flying cross country during COVID's not.
Can we hear this? Can we hear the story on what he did?
Yeah.
Can we guess first?
He runs. He's like a runner. So my brother is does what I do, but he's better at everything. So in high school, I was in cross country and I was the slowest person. Jimmy was one of the best cross country runners. And I was on the school newspaper. Jimmy was the editor in chief on the school newspaper.
You were like a beat reporter. He was the editor.
Yeah, I'm like
a beat reporter for the weird and wacky news.
Yeah, I literally just had the
Mrs. Johnson, plums bear fruit today. Back to you, weather.
Back to you, weather.
What's in the lost and found box today? Let's do it.
Exactly. I've always been anti-work, so cross country, I would start running and then I'd drop out of races when you turn the corner. Because you're not on a track. So you'd go around a corner.
And then you would just stop. In the middle of the competition, you'd just be like, oh, I don't want to do this.
I didn't feel good every time. So
is it true that you used to smoke a little weed before some competitions?
I actually didn't smoke weed until junior.
I thought you... Okay, I thought you said that.
I know people who have, and they swear by smoking weed before you do a cross country race, which I find
believe it.
I believe it too. Yeah, no, it sounds counterintuitive, but I think you could get in some kind of a zone and just
zone out and just run forever.
Become the deer. Yeah.
Jimmy runs in Brooklyn all the time. He'll run between 6 miles and 12 miles a day.
Wow. What
an
insane
person. And he doesn't usually have any issues. One time a Polish man tried to punch him while he was running.
Why do we know he's a Polish man? I love that that's the racial bias you threw out.
Yeah. the neighborhood he lives in.
I'm for bringing back Pollock jokes. You know,
bring them back
for the '90s.
Not oppressed enough, as far as I'm concerned.
That was a big deal. When I was a kid, it was all Pollock jokes.
Yeah, man. I mean,
you're an Italiano.
Down with the Pollocks.
Down with the Pollocks. So it was like, I think, so the neighborhood he lives in is like a very Polish neighborhood. Like there's Polish stores and Polish this and that. And so he was speaking Polish drunkenly when he tried to punch my brother, and his Polish girlfriend held him back. And my brother was like, and ran off. So that was funny. So he's run into some issues, and I've always been like, be careful. Like, don't get punched by another Polish guy out there. So a couple weeks ago, he's running, and like, I don't remember quite what happened, but he kind of like juked out something that was stationary, but he wasn't paying attention. Probably
a stationary Polish man.
Yeah, stationary Polish man. He was probably smoking before he ran.
Tight.
Now that I know that's a thing. And he juked it out, turned, rolled over, landed right on his shoulder, and his collarbone just snapped.
Oh,
it's bad. Like, but they're not doing surgery or anything. They're letting, I guess, collarbones heal. What's the word? They kind of heal on their own a lot of the time. So that's what they're doing with this one. So
he's gonna be a freak for the rest of his life with an ingrown collarbone now.
He'll have kind of like a bump deformity for his rest of his life. I know. Yeah. All this to say, Christmas was kind of
a little off
this year. Yeah.
Well, I feel like it was off for most people. I don't know if anybody had even people that had a very traditional, in whatever capacity you could call it, a traditional Christmas. It's still like looming over your head. And this is actually one of the things that I kind of want to talk about with the anti-work thing. Once we get into that, we can maybe do a couple more front pages before we get into the anti-work. But like the idea of something that is sitting in your subconscious is still a functional part of your life, even if you are not engaging with it, right? And so with COVID, it's like, and and this is like a very challenging part of being alive, right? It's like, you can always live with the potential of a car accident when you're driving, but like that doesn't really benefit you necessarily, even though it's like a stressor, right? And like, so with Christmas, it was like, I mean, everybody is dealing with COVID in one capacity or another. So even if you're just like having a normal Christmas, there's still like the shadow that sits in the background that's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about work most of the time, where it's like, even if you're not on the clock, you're still like on the clock if you're
anxious about it. Yeah.
And so that, I think, so I guess what I'm saying is your Christmas is probably similar to most people's Christmases. I know I mean my Christmas was awesome. I really enjoyed it, but we went up to a goat farm in Stockton. We stayed at a goat farm, and
why was this like hey, let's be different and stay at a goat farm in Stockton kind of a thing, or did you know a guy who like runs a goat farm?
I mean, we wanted to go. I've been like,
hey man, let's go up to that. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out the angle here.
I've been like in unbelievable cabin fever lately. Like I just like I'm like, God, I gotta get out, and I'm also just like kind of on the fucking LA sucks train right now, which I got to get out of. Every time I'm like, I go in and out of it. Right now I'm in it, and I'm in it in a way that it just like, there's all, I think, it feels like I can feel the electricity in my brain. Like there's so much shit going on.
Yeah.
That, like I can just, the humming of everyday technology in a big city, it feels like it's just like fucking lurching into my skull. So and we can't do anything. So it's just kind of like I'm just sitting with I don't know, with kind of passive stress. So anyway, so we wanted to go somewhere. We were looking for somewhere. We kind of chose really late. We're just like, fuck, man, what are we gonna do for Christmas? We got to get somewhere. I don't want to be here.
Right.
So we just like picked a random Airbnb that had really great ratings, but it was a farm. It was a cabin on a farm, or a ranch rather. These two women who they have 15 goats, they got 3 horses, they got a bunch of cats, and the horses just kind of graze in front of your cabin, and just like they'll walk up to you and you tap them on the nose and say good horse, and they go about their way. The goats are just like around, and like, you know, you can go in their pen, like they're not just like wandering, but you go in their pen and they just come up to you and they're so affectionate and so sweet. And so it was, so we had a very like utopian Christmas, but it was, you know, it wasn't.
Goats are like,
we watched Ernest Saves Christmas. That was about the most Christmas thing we did.
That's cool. That's at Central Valley. It's kind of, my aunt and uncle live in Stockton. I spent a lot of my time as a kid in Stockton. It's it's a weird place. It doesn't get any credit. But it's part of the like Yosemite sort of foothills that lead into like gold country that lead like up into the mountains, kind of like delta system. But it's real. It feels really old fashioned California in a nice way. It's like there's just kind of like not much going on. It's like it can be really hot in the summer. You just sit there and you pet goats and like
God.
That's and then there's a lot of asparagus. There's like an asparagus scene up there. There's like an asparagus festival. It's always fun to hit. It's a lot of good produce.
So we're gonna go back.
I mean, it was awesome. It was objectively Trump country, which I think was a little bit hard to see, but it was also, you know, it was one of those things where I just like was I felt at peace, and I don't know what it was. I feel I was like, part of it was like, you know, part of it was knowing that like when you're on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, if somebody, this goes back to the work thing, if somebody hits you up about work, they are an asshole, right?
Yes.
Like it is, you get to be like, fuck you, man. Like there's one of the most classic movies of all time is about the premise in which you're living right now, dude. Like somebody hitting you up about work on that day and being like, please, I need to go feed my crippled son, right? And then you know what I mean? Like that's the whole fucking premise.
Yeah. That happened to me on Christmas Eve, I think, like the morning of. So like whatever that day was, the 24th was like a Thursday or maybe a Wednesday. So it was a midweek kind of thing. And the guy who hit me up was Jewish, doesn't celebrate Christmas. Because I work in Hollywood, everybody's Jewish. Totally. And I think so I know the Jewish holidays now. I'm like basically Jewish, like from having because it's the way to be, the way to get a job in this town, you know. So I was like, that's interesting. Like, I wonder if you don't know it's Christmas, A, and like the whole world's celebrating Christmas, or B, you're sort of like anti-Christmas because you're Jewish, and you're like, well, fuck Christmas. But on the flip side, on the Jewish holidays, if you like reach out to a Jewish person on a Jewish holiday, they're like, what the fuck are you doing, man? This is fucking Hanukkah. Like they're really aggressive about it. And you're like, okay, respect. My bad. But like goes both ways, right? But apparently not.
Well, it's unfortunately Christmas. I mean, this is so why don't we just get into the anti-work thing? Because I think that we're kind of already segueing into it nicely anyway.
We want to talk about it.
I want to try to keep this from being like a gripe session, which I think it could easily be. I think that there's a lot of griping to be done, but I think that what's interesting about this sub and what I love about it, and I think, Dog, I want you to kind of go into why you brought this up, some of the sidebar and some of that stuff, but it really is, it's a story of capitalism as much as it is a story of work. And I think that is the reason I bring that up is even as it pertains to Christmas and the way we're talking about Christmas is Christmas has become such a commodity and commodified holiday that it doesn't even retain its original intention, which then opens the door for people who are like are Jewish, are not non-practicing Christians or whatever, to rightfully say, "Oh, we're working on this holiday," and then for you to be like, "Hey, man, I really, it's like Christmas." They'd be like, "Are you Christian?" Be like, "No." Well, so like, we got to work, right?
Because it's like what are you doing? Well,
for a lot of people, it's just like, dude, what you're taking the day off on the day that Starbucks creates cups around? Like what? Like I don't fucking care, right? Which is kind of a reality, right? And I think that it is in a lot of ways considered like the most sacred of holidays for the kind of working hours, working class or whatever. But maybe it's a byproduct of being in a city where you do kind of have a lot of differing points of view and you have a lot of hustlers and the hustler mentality. But it does feel like this year felt like it was diminished for a lot of reasons. I don't know why, but it definitely felt a little bit more like Yeah. I mean, if you need to take Christmas off, you know what I mean? Like that was a little bit of the attitude. So
I feel like, I love that we're going to jump right into this right now because I definitely feel like this year has been like an acceleration of the breakdown of work-life balance and like respecting those boundaries
100%.
because those boundaries kind of went away. Like those we're all at home working. So while that's kind of nice because we don't have to, commute and whatnot, and we can like sit in our filthy pajama pants for 3 weeks straight and no one's gonna know about it. But like but at the same time, you will get emails at all hours now. Like you're expected to be responding to emails from 8 a.m. on, 7 a.m. on. Like
right.
there's no like, oh, look around, dog titties isn't in the office yet, so when she gets in, she'll see this. It's like you're just expected. We all have phones, and you need to be on it 24/7.
Yeah, and this is something that I have brought up a lot because this past year because I am a manager of some people at work. And so I have been keenly aware of this, and I'm like almost feel like I'm the like my it's funny like there are the relationship I have with work is such that I am very keenly aware of this issue, and I try to shield people from it as much as I possibly can, or at least I try.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it's just not. It's a little bit of a losing battle, right? And it
Yeah.
kind of depends on what industry you're in, of course. And I have some friends like my best buddy Nate, who is who's a nurse. He, when you're off the clock, you're off the clock. There's no one's gonna hit you up. You're a nurse, right?
Yeah.
You can't really do anything. It has to be hands on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think anything that pertains to like white collar work or like non-labor work, non-hands, in-person work,
Yeah.
I think the internet has created this bizarre reality of constant work, always on, even when you're off, because there's an access point at all times,
Yeah.
and that's created a weird thing. And in this, so one of the things I want to get into, so let's first talk a little bit about the sub itself, Dog.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk to you about because a lot of this is like you have to be able to get through the mental block of feeling self-worth problems by not working.
Right? Yeah. 100%.
So, you at the beginning of the year, I mean, obviously we took some time because, work was hard for you and you weren't being able to get it, which is antithetical to what this is all about, but obviously was a real feeling for you. So it's really interesting, the relationship that you in particular have to this topic.
Yeah.
So, first, let's talk about the actual sub and talk about the sidebar and some of this stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So anti-work. It sounds like we're talking about laziness. We're not talking about laziness. There's a lot more to it.
Well, we are in a way, though. I want to just really quickly segue. Like, yes, like it is not about laziness, but there are part of this, like a lot of this is like it is in defense of being able to be lazy as a self improvement tool. I think, right?
Rest. It's like we've conflated laziness and rest and the natural rest that human bodies need with laziness, and that's an issue. So okay, unemployment for all, not just the rich. That's the tagline for this one, which I think is already pretty telling, because if we talk about anti-work and we look at the people who don't work, it's people like Jeff Bezos. He probably works for maybe 3 hours a day. I think it was said that he gets 8 hours of sleep every night. He makes 3 decisions every day. And then you look at people who work in his factories and they're working 12 to 13 hours a day, falling down, passed out because they're forced to stand for so long. And you're thinking, okay, if working's so great, why wouldn't the rich have saved it all for themselves? So anyway, about the community.
Well, yeah, let's circle back to that, because I actually have an interesting I will never defend Jeff Bezos. That's not what this is about. But by that logic, though, is he ever not work? Like, what are we calling work? Because
That's
those three decisions he
great
makes
question.
is
That's a great question.
labor and work are not the same thing, and I think that in itself is kind of complicated. Where it's like we want to say Jeff Bezos isn't fucking working, but like he's Jeff Bezos. I don't know if you're never not working again.
He
Yeah.
also
if what you want to do is not think about the thing you do for money,
Right. That's a good point. There's a great article that we can talk about that they list here that talks about the rise of bullshit jobs in the past 50 years, which I think will be a great time to talk about that.
What were you going to say, Freed? Sorry we cut you off.
Oh, I mean, the Bezos thing, he worked for like 15 years, 24/7 to get to the point where he doesn't have to work at 50. So, I think that one's like a little, he earned it in a lot of ways, I think, by being somebody who, pushed against, everyone told him this isn't going to work. Who's going to buy books on a computer? And then he's like, fuck all you. And now he's the richest man in the world. So to some extent, he gambled huge. He worked his ass off and it paid off. But
yeah, I mean, this is an interesting topic.
That's the American dream, I think, too. Is like,
but
this is his specific business has done things no other business has, which is why it's different. But there's a lot of people like that don't have to work.
I don't think we're not going to close the loop on any of these topics. By the way, these all could go on. Like there are like massive philosophical schools of thought entirely about one of these topics. So like we're not going to close the door on any of them. We're kind of
good point
addressing some of them, I think, but like that, because like even mentioning the American dream is a fascinating topic because the American dream is built on, I don't want to say it's built on a lie, but it's built on an expectation of productivity that has become this mutated blob of kind of like a cancer cell to the human soul, that in order to achieve this so-called American dream, as somebody who has kind of been a byproduct of it, I feel like it is no longer a self-satisfying endeavor. And so the American dream is like a big question, is kind of a central part of this, because the American dream is so wrapped up in America's specific version of capitalism, which is ultimately what this sub is about. Anyway, continue, Doc. Sorry, I'm like, I was reading about it last night, and I was like, this hits a lot of things I've been thinking about.
You're right, and you're right. These are all great topics that we'll talk about in this episode. So the community is a subreddit for those who want to end work, are curious about ending work, want to get the most out of a work-free life, want more information on anti-work ideas, and want personal help with their own job/work-related struggles. There are 212,000 idlers online right now, or no, just subscribed, and 714 are currently not working on this subreddit. So they're actually on there right now. It was created in 2013. And then there is the sidebar that has frequently asked questions, a link to a website called abolishwork.com, an anti-work library with different articles, essays, and books that you can take a look at, and then a lot of related subreddits, which we kind of touched on at the beginning. Late stage capitalism is one of it, which Boss Man, Slave Driver, It's Your Dad did mention, including anarchism is another one, cooperatives, co-ops, I hate my job, or just hate my job, lost generation, mutualism, radical, mental health, simple living. So different subreddits to kind of like, I think the reality is people realize like not working at all is not a reality in this world, but working as little as possible and focusing on the things that actually are very important in life, like your family, your friends, traveling, interacting with the world around you, as opposed to, especially my favorite article is about bullshit jobs, which I think is so telling. Instead of spending all of my time on, you know, bullshit jobs, it's really crazy. It's kind of sad. So anyway, this is I think is like when I first kind of wandered into this subreddit, I think I wandered into it this year, and it was through a lot of different like kind of pessimistic subreddits that I was kind of floating around because of my just mental state of where I was, which was unemployed, the beginning of the pandemic, not knowing, you know, how long the livable unemployment benefits, which were adding up to enough money to cover rent and bills, how long that was going to last, seeing as, you know, it was temporarily bumped up. So it's like all this stress of realizing, like, even if you don't love working and you're not like, this is my craft, I make jewelry, or I am a farmer and I am one with the earth and I put food literally on people's tables. It's not really personal fulfillment so much as you're almost like a hostage to the world around you.
Hostage is the perfect word. Like that I think is the best word to describe, I think, the sentiment that a lot of people feel with this. And I think a lot of people, you know, you know, when I talk to my therapist, the kind of resonant theme that we often talk about is my fear of having freedom taken from me. And I don't mean freedom in kind of the American colloquial context, but it's this kind of freedom where it's like the dexterity to do what you want to do and be who you want to be at any time. Is something that I think we all crave, and that is, I think, ultimately what the American idealism, or kind of, you know, the even like the propagandized American idealism is about, right? Which is about, you know, the American dream, as kind of you mentioned earlier, Freed, is like being able to be free and do what you want to do to live your life the way you want to live, right? But increasingly, the idea of being hostage to a system that you don't agree with, to jobs that you don't believe in, to worlds that you don't condone, I think is kind of becoming an increasingly pertinent topic in something that I think is more relatable every day.
This is Ted Kaczynski's whole shtick, man.
You're right.
Not that we're pro Ted Kaczynski dropping bombs, but like,
you're so right.
The hostage thing, that word is like, that's the theme of this podcast, I would say.
And you're right. Went through, like, when you start looking into him, you get a little freaked out about how at the very beginning you're like, wait, this is not the worst idea. What happened? Why did you take it this direction?
Totally.
Yeah, you should have just ran for office, man, and like
run for office, man. Could have been Bernie. Could have been the next year.
Because he could have been Bernie pretty easily if he just blow people
up. Absolutely could have been Bernie pretty easily. Yeah,
he could have. So this is like an example, I think, of like one of the standard memes or standard kind of posts that not a meme, but a post you see here is like people post about post like tweets or posts from Facebook and stuff. And you see a lot of stuff like this. Like, I'm so tired of hustle culture. I'm not on earth to work myself to death for money, and I won't be shamed into feeling otherwise. There's more to life than multiple streams of income, which reminds me even of this. P. Diddy apparently went on Instagram last week and was talking about how if this year didn't bring out the hustle in you, it ain't in you. And it's like,
oh, damn, P. Diddy.
Said wealthy people are so out of touch and I wish they'd shut the fuck up sometimes. And it's stuff like that I think people who are, I think this stuff maybe used to be inspiring before people realize we're not all going to hustle our way into being millionaires. We're not all going to hustle our way into being billionaires. Like,
it's a lot of propaganda, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's like
fascinating, dog. Like, just the fact that it is validated, the hustle is validated through the money, it's like the tax bracket that you enter validated. For you to say, not everybody's going to hustle to become a millionaire or a billionaire, like that is like the core issue, is that we do all these things as a means of giving us the assets and the wealth that we need to be able to do what is the thing we're doing. And I think that thing
buy
is
stuff.
Well, it's buy stuff, but it's also like the freedom to not have to worry about shit, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we are a society that, you know, I play in a band called Melted Bodies, right? And a lot of our songs, I think, kind of are a little bit about this, where it's like, you know, in LA, the reason I bring this up, we have a song literally about this, where it's like, if you like are fucking driving and a squirrel runs out in front of you and you like slam your brakes and you hit the guy in front of you's car and he gets out and he goes, oh hell yeah, this is perfect. Oh yeah, my back hurts. Oh, I gotta get this fixed, man. You owe me 50 grand. And then you're just like, what are you talking about? I don't know. How? You're fine. He's like, no, I think I'm probably hurt actually.
Yeah.
50 grand, right? And like, and then you hire a lawyer. The lawyer goes, hell yeah, let's do this. Actually, let's get that up to 150 grand. And then all of a sudden, that person who had the fender bender is like in debt for the rest of their life, right? Because that is the system that America is built on for whatever fucking reason. And so we do these things. We work as an exercise in creating security for ourselves, and that security is designed to protect us against crazy shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Like it almost feels like it's a lot less about, oh, I want to buy a house, and it's a lot more like, well, if I get fucking sued by some crazy person, or if I like get cancer and my insurance drops me because they don't want to pay for it, like I got to be able to do it on my own, right? And like that is the hostage. Like that is where the hostage thing is really fucking palpable. Because I mean, a lot of people probably feel, that like they're hostage to the desire to have a really fucking nice car, really nice clothes, and you know, especially living in a place like LA, of course. But that's not where I feel the hostage. I feel the hostage in the inability to literally stay alive or keep the basic necessities of life, because our country is so fucking ruthless.
Yeah.
So quick to dismiss anybody who can't keep up with themselves, right?
Totally. There's this article that they link to that it's 8 myths about work.
Right. I love this article.
Let me
the mythology of work is what it's called.
Yeah, and this is pretty cool. Pretty cool, Dad.
We're gonna link some of these in. I'll put some in the private chat right now for anybody who's paying attention. But we'll link these in our subreddit as well for anybody who's paying attention.
So this is kind of what you were talking about. I think is like this myth that work creates wealth, and this idea that if we work really, really, really hard, we can be in Jeff Bezos' position, or we can be even in our boss's position.
Right.
Work doesn't, these aren't my words, this is from this article. Work doesn't simply create wealth where there was only poverty before. On the contrary, so long as it enriches some at others' expense, work creates poverty too, in direct proportion to profit. I'm no economist, so if you guys are economists out there and this doesn't ring true, please let us know. I am just, this is interesting. And
so I studied economics. That was actually one of my things. And I'm like, I'm kind of anything I did in college and kind of anything I've learned, I think economics, for whatever fucking reason, is the one that is always the most precious to me.
Yeah.
I think it's because, the way I've always thought about economics is it's not. I did not get a degree in economics because I didn't want to become an economist. So I studied economics, got my minor, and then just like took classes about topics in economics that I thought were interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and most of it was macroeconomics. So I was really interested in why like countries and regions make the decisions they make. And as compared to like microeconomics about like, minute details and kind of the way things function. But the whole idea that economics is about money, I think, is fundamentally wrong. Economics is about the behavior, or it's the science of human decision making, right? Because everything is under the assumption that people are reacting are making choices rationally. Like that's the whole premise of economics, is that, when you do something, like if you're going to see, a car is coming at you, the rational decision is to get out of the way, right? And economics functions under the idea that people are always acting rationally so that you can make predictive models about how they react. But I think that rational, is becoming an increasingly predictable variable, right? Because we don't know what rational is to people anymore, because people are doing irrational things all the time. It's irrational for people to be ignoring COVID, right? Knowing that it dramatically affects their industries, their jobs, their health, or whatever, right? Like it's irrational for someone to risk their life that much, but people are doing it anyway. And then the other thing about economics I think is really important for most people to consider, because this is the human decision making is opportunity cost, that we are all kind of constantly playing this game of making decisions based on opportunity cost. And what that means, if you don't know anything about economics, is the cost of you not doing something as well as the thing that cost of you doing something. So like, what is the opportunity cost of not going to college, right? Well, the cost then is not being able to get a degree that then allows for you to make 80 grand instead of 30 grand, and then not being able to take advantage of fucking, I don't know, fraternity, LinkedIn relationships, whatever. Like you can kind of play that game for as far as you want to go. But I think that it's also a trap, because I think it's become that thing where people go, oh, well, the opportunity cost of you not going to college is really high. And then everybody gets that thing. And then people go, oh, actually, we were wrong. It's actually like, you should have gotten a trade because there's too many people that went to college now, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, a little bit of a tangent, but like so as it pertains to economics, I think this is a little bit of the thing. And I think with what you're talking about here, it's kind of the idea that in modern capitalism, you can't not you have to have people that are creating wealth gap, because that's like, that competition is what drives the economy theoretically, right?
Right.
But that again is also collapsing as we speak. So Freed is meditating over there, by the way. Meditating and or snoozing.
I'm awake. There's a lot of talking. I'm trying to listen.
He's putting himself in the listener's shoes right now.
Looking does not affect listening. I don't understand that.
People not looking helps listening.
Yes, it's like the simplest thing, but people consider it rude. I don't get it. People are dumb. But anyway,
no, your other senses get stronger. I'm with you. But the line that got me in this one, there are a few other myths in here that are really interesting that maybe we'll touch on, but is the line that poverty is not an objective condition, but a relationship produced by unequal distribution of resources. So for every Bill Gates, 1 million people must live below the poverty line. For every Shell oil, there has to be a Nigeria. So it's like these people become outrageously wealthy at the expense of other people. Like
I don't know if that's true. Like, I mean, it sounds like it makes sense, but because Bill Gates has money doesn't mean I don't have that money. Like,
no,
take my, and
not yours.
The reason I bring this up is because
there are like exploitative practices within their companies that allow their profits to go up, where they don't even provide like livable wages to people who work in their factories, for instance.
Right. Yes.
Right. Like and the reason you don't, I mean, the reason you can't so this is the relationship with inflation, right? Because if there's a finite amount of money, there's not a finite amount of money, but the reason there's a finite amount of money is because if you just flood the market with more money, be like, why don't we just make more money to give to people? Then that creates inflation. Which means that,
I mean, kind of, but
also creates fun.
I don't know. Like, I think you can keep creating money forever, because why the fuck not? I don't know. Like what? Well,
I mean,
there's no breaking point because it's all made up anyway. So you might as well just increase the scope of what you think you can make.
I mean, it is all made up.
Who gives a shit?
But
there's no like rule.
Well,
there isn't. It's all an idea.
I know what you mean, and I agree with you, but I guess this is the complicated thing is like everything has a relationship with the system in which it's built on, right? So, because we have a system in which if you increase let's say like we just go, oh, everybody wants more money. Well, fuck, man, we'll just print more money. Here's more money, right? Then all of the places that were I mean, this is the theories within economics. I'm not necessarily saying I completely agree with this, but like the ideas then are that, oh, everybody now has way more money. Well, that means that the things in which people are spending their money on, the value in which we are attributing to that, we are now going to up the price on because there's so much money now that the money is worth less because everybody has more of it, right? So all of a sudden, instead of it being like, oh, that Chanel bag, like, I mean, this is actually a good example when you think about luxury goods, right? Because luxury goods, like the only reason it's luxury is exclusivity, right? So if you give everybody more money and everybody goes, I'm going to go out and get a Chanel bag, right? And then Chanel goes, oh, now our bags are worth much less, which now decreases the value in them. So the only way we can keep the value is by increasing the price to make it less accessible so that less people can get it. But more people already have so much more money. So now all of a sudden the bag costs $2,000 or $5,000 instead of $2,000. And then the people with $2,000 where they would have gotten that bag now go, oh, I can no longer afford that $5,000 bag. Right.
That's how I want to talk about next, because there's really no inherent value in that bag, but people are stupid and emotional. Not people, like I'm not saying people are stupid, but people are stupid and emotional.
I'm not saying people are stupid, but people are stupid.
But people are fucking stupid.
They are. Can't buy it.
Well, I mean, the fact that people emotionally fall for these goofs and gaffes drive these prices. And if you can, and we all fall prey to this, but like there are tools that have a function, and then there are things you buy that you do not need. And I think buying a luxury bag is a status symbol in a community that you feel like now you're a ranking member in that community. And it's really just it's you sort of like falling prey to some kind of click system, clickbait social program that's kind of all made up. And if you one of the big thoughts I had from anti-work is like, even living in LA feels like a scam. It's like totally. We're kind of competing to like live in a cool house in a cool neighborhood and have like a cool car and have a cool TV. And it's like, why? And I think there are options. Like America's like a big place with a lot of open space, and there's other places you could go that are much more affordable, that you could probably get by with less. And I think we're kind of in this like glut attitude of like,
that's a good point.
More. And my big takeaway from this sub is like, you're working to get those things that you think you need, but I bet you don't. I don't think you need like the purse or like a cool car.
Totally.
Probably not. Like there's probably a way to like figure out another version of what you think you're working for that doesn't cost very much. And I think you sort of just get in the grind of like shopping and buying and like doing it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to like pull yourself out of it, because it's like breaking up with someone that's like a mediocre relationship. It's like sometimes it's like easier to just like stay in it. And I feel like that's how I feel with LA a lot of the time. Like I feel like I'm in this relationship that I'm like, I should have broken up with you 5 years ago, but like I didn't.
Now we're in it.
Now we're like in it. Might as well just like you're like, or should we like move to New Mexico and could you still do what you do in a way for half the cost and have twice the free time? And like those are my takeaways from a lot of this is like in back to the bag. It's like I don't know if we need to fucking pack it.
Yeah. I was thinking two things. One thing, if everyone can afford the Chanel bag, my solution is they start making them out of human flesh.
I like it.
Now we're talking economics.
Then they become a little bit more rare just by how they make them. Exclusivity.
Rare. Yeah,
well,
it is true.
That is still that's capitalism at work. Like you're creating rarity for the sake of doing this.
I'm nothing if not a capitalist.
You are nothing if not a capitalist. So what you said was really interesting there, Freed, because I think you're talking about it through material goods, but I think particularly as it pertains to this subreddit, what's interesting about our relationship with LA is I feel like it's a lot less opportunity to live in a like luxurious opportunistic environment, and a lot more to be exposed and close to the industry that allows for you to succeed and be productive, which I think is actually kind of a bigger problem. And also that is what I think LA sells. Is it sells like, oh, you want to be a writer? You got to move to LA. You got to be in LA. Oh, you want to make it in Hollywood, son? You got to go to Los Angeles, right? And so
come sit on my couch.
Come sit on my couch. So it's a little bit of
all start sucking. From the economic teat, dude.
Like Silicon Valley. It's like Silicon Valley. It's like, oh, you want to work in tech? You want to work in tech, young man? Like you got to go to Silicon Valley, and then it creates a lot of the, that's where you get into that basic supply and demand.
High
but instead of being about, oh, I want to have the nice things, I want to get a Tesla, whatever. It's a little bit more like, no, I want to succeed. I want to be considered productive. I don't want to be a failure by not being able to do the things that make me feel like a productive member of society. So I have to go to a place like that. And I think that is actually kind of a bigger problem, is like the fact that we view these cities that we're hostage to as the one true bastion of potential productive self-fulfillment, right? Which is really what I think it's all about.
I think about that a lot as it pertains to creativity, because we all work in some kind of a creative job, and LA is like, a creative jobs city, media city. And you end up, I was saying, a lot of the jobs I've had that are quote unquote like creative hires, where I'm supposed to be coming up with ideas for other people's whatever they're paying me for, you end up basically managing the stress, or you get managed is what happens. So like somebody brings me on to work at an ad agency for a day rate of anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a day. That's a lot of money, and they want to make sure they're getting every penny worth out of that money. And so, being creative for a job doesn't look like you're working a lot of times. It looks like you're for me, it's like sweeping the sidewalk, raking leaves, pruning a bush, sanding a table. Like it's all stuff I'm doing while I'm thinking about something else. If you're in an office doing that, it would actually be great. I should be a janitor at an ad agency, and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" That's our top writer.
The most productive writer there.
Yeah, it's the most productive writer here. That guy mops and writes. That actually would make me happier, because you get a little movement, a little exercise.
That's what you should ask every agency when you start. You're like, could I get a mop and bucket?
Can I get a mop job? Because in an agency, every 30 minutes is a meeting, or somebody comes in, they go, "What are you working on?" And it's like, well, I was about to have a thought. Now I'm not, because I got this meeting. So it's like you spend this day trying to be creative, but you end up being managed by the process and so then it doesn't happen. So point is, like, is being in a city that costs a lot and has those expensive sort of benchmarks to hit, does it make sense to be creative at all? And it probably doesn't, but we all do it anyway. And you're like, well, I should be in New Mexico, where I have a ton of free time and no bills, and I could probably have the freedom to come up with really great ideas because I have the space to do it.
Well, I think the relationship we have with cities, I mean, this is one of the big 2020 revelations for me as well. And this is actually very interesting that we're doing this as our last episode of 2020, is because a lot of these topics I feel like are uniquely magnified because of 2020. Like cities, I think are a really important topic because, and granted, Freed and Dog, I don't know how much you guys do city things, but like in LA, I do tons of shit that I can only do, right? I'm constantly playing shows or going to shows. I'm going to gallery openings. I'm going to fucking new weird restaurants that I would never be able to get where I'm from, right? Now
Murdering
that
homeless
2020
hookers.
has eradicated everything, you can't do that. So
Right.
now it's just you're living in a city that's expensive.
Well, I think everybody feels this way about cities across America. It's like, well, what's the point if I'm paying all these bills, then I can't do the cool shit that I'm here to do.
Right.
New York, San Francisco, LA, it's all this, like, people are like, I'm here for the filet mignon sushi nipple roll.
I'm here for the experience. Like, I'm here for the culture. I'm here for the things that are uniquely a byproduct of a city trying to explore itself, right?
Yeah.
The coolest thing about New York is being like 25, single, and just being out, like working, living, bars, drinks, dating. It's like, it's great, right? It's really great.
After work on the way home.
Meeting a random so-and-so, being like, hey, you want to go to this club? And then you go eat that roll
behind that dumpster. Like, that's the kind of stuff that is just so New York, and you just don't get that this year.
It's just so New York, just like throwing pizza at people on the street and punching Polish people. It's just, you don't get it with the coronavirus, but it's true. And people, I mean, across America have fled cities because of that, right? It's like, well, might as well go raise eagles in Colorado or something.
Well, and this is the big. So I think let's get back to this one article about the crimethink.com, where the eight thing. What is it? The eight myths of work. Because the other thing too about this is I have this thought constantly about, like, oh, cool, when I leave the city. But then I go, what can I do? What am I going to be able to do? And that, I think, is also, I don't want to say it's a generational thing, but it definitely feels like this conversation is not unique to us three, right? A lot of people are having a similar conversation right now, especially as it pertains to 2020. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, cool, maybe I'll move to Ohio, or oh, maybe I'll move to fucking Amsterdam, maybe I'll move to whatever. But then there's a kind of a follow-up resonant thought of like, well, how do I do what I do there? I don't, And then that, I think, is really troubling. And that is another one of those that's another byproduct of this, which is that the feeling of being hostage to both your past, your resume, your like, track record, your golden handcuffs. Like, there's a lot of things that you can feel hostage to.
Yeah.
And in some capacity, I really like admire parents for this reason, because I think at a certain degree, Freed, I'm sure you have this thought often where you're just like, man, if I didn't have kids, I would fucking I'd be raising llamas in Phoenix right now, right?
I'd be down in Portugal, dude, down in the southern hemisphere, up in the Portugals.
Up in the Portugal,
but just raising squid hats, making squid hats.
I love that.
The dream of a single bachelor is raising squid hats.
I'm just a simple expat making squid hats up in Portugal.
Up in the Portugals, dude.
But it is. But
I want a squid hat now. That sounds dope.
Get the little dangles right here.
All the dangles.
And but people say squid is the closest thing to human skin, so that's nice.
They do say that.
If you have a kid, I feel like you don't, or like when you have a family, your obligations change, and it kind of forces you to like no longer entertain the other things, and not as like a defeatist thing, as much as a like, well, what's good for this, we shall figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of an admiration about that. I love, right?
There is for me, that was not a bad thing, in that it was like a clarity thing where it was like, it actually feels like oh, this is great, like this is what I was meant to do, and I really love doing it, and I get more satisfaction because I've, before kids, like before marriage and all that stuff, like I think the last, like, I went on like a around the world trip when I was like 30, and I was like single. I think I was. I don't know. I can't remember. But I was right around there, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna like travel and like live on the. I had like money, and I was just like going, man. And at a certain point, I was super bored. I was like, I'm in these places. I'm meeting interesting people, and I'm like riding an elephant here and there and whatever. And you're like, it's but at a certain point you're like hanging out with people that are just like floating around and aren't really doing anything. And you're like, oh, like I want to plant some roots and do something that's not just like smoking weed and riding elephants. Like that's cool for a vacation, but like, for the forever of it all, I realize like I like being in a place. I like, like working on one thing or planting those roots. For me, it was like I got to an age where I didn't want to just like float around.
Yeah, that nomad life was behind you.
It sounds great, and I did it when I was like 20 or something, and then I did it when I was like 30 or something. And it was at 20, you're like, I could do this forever, and at 30, I was like, I want like fresh socks, I need socks. Right. Luckily in Asia, socks are super cheap.
I feel like I'm just such a homebody that I just want to be like in one place, not see any humans, interact, phone calls. No, I don't want anything. I just want my Sims, a TV where I can watch Matlock, and The Waltons, which is my new favorite show.
I don't know about that show, but have you considered a move like to like a New Mexico or something?
I think
not that I want you to leave because I liked seeing you, but this is not personal.
No,
but there are these other cities that are kind of popping up that you're like, it sounds pretty fucking sweet.
Yeah.
Like
right now it's like I'm close to my mom, I'm close to, my friends, but like I would love to move ideally like northwest kind of little cabin. Ooh. That's just my dream. That would be amazing.
What else is going on?
You want to join a white supremacy cult in Oregon, I think is what you're looking for.
I want to infiltrate one, bring them down from inside.
I think you're going for the serial killer vibe. You want to investigate serial killers. They're all within
I described Ted Kaczynski's entire like vibe, didn't I? Cabin, alone,
TV,
bomb-making supplies. Not that I would use them for that. I wouldn't.
I think yeah. This is not a good time to be talking about bomb making supplies. Since
we didn't talk on that.
Exploded.
It's beyond now. We missed it.
We don't even talk about it anymore. If you haven't heard about that, then you've been under a rock somehow. But there was a car bomb in fucking Nashville that destroyed a entire city block. Insane.
You know what? I'm off the news, right? I'm fucking off. Yeah. I'm no more news.
Do you not know
if I see it, I avoid it. I didn't know about it for a couple of days, and someone mentioned it, and I kind of ignored it, and I still haven't looked into it. So I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like I've been off news this entire year / maybe past 3 years, and it took a long time for me to like ancillarily piece it together. It's weird. It's like the news did not cover it very well. I don't think.
No, it was
be able to get through my.
Okay, wait,
you'll find more about it on deeptube.net.
I'm going DeepTube for sure. So I have another thought that's a conversation starter thought about anti-work that I think we might evolve to. Maybe, hopefully, I think it's an optimistic thought, a positive idea. But as we've progressed to gender pronouns, 15 bathrooms, all the sort of personal, racial, sexual preferences I think that space in the workplace has progressed in a good way, right?
Yeah.
People have the space to be who they want now. And I think workplaces are like, great, cool.
Improving. Yeah.
Improving. All good. Now, the idea is like, as the next generation of people get jobs, could there be a movement? And I don't have a name for this. Maybe we come up with it. But like, as you hire me for your employee, one of the questions I would ask is like, do you participate in the thought of home work life balance, whatever you call it? Now, every company says they do, but like, this would be actually holding them to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I only work here from 9 to 6. and I don't return emails like on the weekends. Like if there's some kind of a movement where just like it was like pronouns or something,
Yeah.
Right.
where it became the sort of the accepted trend.
Yeah.
Could that make workplaces become more appealing to work at, which I'm sure it would be,
Mhm.
and then could that become the standard? And then when a company tries to like turn you into their slave and you talk about it, it makes the company look worse, right?
Right.
Just like it would if they said like, no, we don't believe in gay people working here or something. Like company would get sort of political shit for that. So
Right.
Yeah, almost like a company coming out and saying like, our policy is no emails after 8:00 or no emails after 7:00, and everyone being like, what a progressive way to look at healthy separation of work and home life.
And everybody says, I think a lot of companies would say they believe in that, but nobody actually follows through. And there's an easy way to actually deal with it. Now whoever's like the CFO there is worried about the bottom line. They go, fuck no. Like if we have a job that needs to get done, I expect people to do it. But you sort of have to like take a back seat to that and think of the long game, which is better employees that are going to work there longer, and you're going to actually create long lasting value versus like some sort of short term gain.
Yeah.
I don't, to me, like that's where this whole thing also could go. And I think there should be a name for it. And maybe it's anti-work or like,
Man, that'd be
it sounds too negative, but.
Well, and this is ultimately so a couple things there. So I think that is a social, you're proposing a social movement.
That's what I do. I'm all about
what you
social
do.
movement. No pants, fruit punch in the office.
And I think when you think about like gender neutrality, people of color, like whatever, a lot of the contemporary workplace social movements, they are a byproduct of some massive injustice that's obviously created inequality, and a cynical perspective on it, which I think I do entertain to some degree, is that brands go, oh yeah, this is good for us if we say we're going to do it, and then they obviously don't, right?
Right.
See that a lot. I also think that there's a little bit of I don't think it's an impracticality, but I think there's a difference between being overtly open and all that, and then versus kind of what we've seen, which is like hire people of color now, immediately, hurry, right? And then I think a lot of brands have struggled to do that for a variety of reasons, right? But
Yeah.
France, I believe, I don't know the exact rule, but I'm almost positive France actually has a law on the books about not working past 7 or something like that. As like it's a workplace infringement.
Yeah.
And
we won't
we
look it
have a
up.
similar thing with minimum, with minimum wage. There are laws in place designed to protect workers, but unfortunately, we've also seen the degradation of labor laws and labor unions that would help prevent some of this. And I think this is what we said at the beginning, where it's like, there's so many different ripples from this that we could go, and I don't, it's hard to really kind of keep it all contained in one subreddit. But you guys saw American Factory, right?
Oh yeah.
No.
So American Factory is an amazing documentary. It came out last year. It was about a Chinese company buying a factory in Ohio, and essentially,
they're a glass factory. They make windshields and things for cars,
right.
And they're the biggest glass manufacturer in the world. And they bought this old factory, and they're essentially putting a bunch of money into it, and like in Dayton, and like it's supposed to be a really good thing for the city, but
right.
It wasn't that simple.
Yeah, and it wasn't that simple. And then it was also, the big thing for me that like genuinely scared me when I was watching this because of this exact conversation was seeing that the way in which Chinese workers work is a joyless, utterly hostage to the company situation as a normality, right? So, and some would say, oh, American workers are lazy, but like that is the core problem, is that there are other countries who go, oh yeah, our people don't give a fuck, man. They'll work 12 hours, no problem. They don't need holidays, they don't need anything. And then they go home and they smoke a cigarette, they have a beer, they like say hi to their kid and they go to bed and they live their life that way. And that's like that was kind of the version. Now granted it's a documentary, it's an American documentary, it's produced by Obamas actually. So like they were never going to make them look great presumably, but it was scary because you see the way that that capitalism is fucking mutating in this desire to work forever, and then what happens in a system where we go, oh well, we got to cut out labor laws because it's ruining our bottom line, right? Oh, like Google, people have been trying to fucking, or not Google, but Amazon, people have been trying to organize for Amazon for like a decade, and every single time it happens, they get fired, right? So like nobody is organizing these labor law or unions at Amazon, and it's created like this like fear again, where like, oh, thank you so much, I'm so grateful to have a job, thank you, right?
What about those commercials I keep seeing on TV about how great it is to work at Amazon?
Oh, those are the freakiest commercials.
Wait, hold on. About American Factory, I think about that movie all the time, but one particular scene. Okay. There's a scene where this guy who's like come over to Dayton, he's from China, he's like a manager, and he works 20 hours a day. He goes home to this like crummy apartment. He eats like an old fish he caught in the river that's like full of chemicals. Totally. He eats it. He's like, which is like crazy. You're like, don't eat that fish, man. That's full of fucking Peru chemical. And then he sits outside of his apartment, and he's, like you see the Chinese guys squat in their flip flops, and he's like smoking a cigarette over like a Folgers can, and he's like, "This is the best part of my day." It's like this 5 minutes, and there's a scene, and you go like,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know the scene. So I watch that, and I'm like, man, that seems depressing. Every day after, like I put my kids to bed, like get the kids up at 7:00. Make a breakfast, work all day, nonstop. Finally put in bed, like everyone's in bed by 9. I like sit down for 10 minutes, and I'm like, it's the best part of my day. And it lasts for like 5 minutes. And I'm like, dude, totally. I feel like that Chinese guy now, like in that movie, dude. Like there's these little like windows of like relaxation, but they don't last. Because if you get too lazy, someone will come take your job and you'll listen. I know. It's crazy.
It is crazy, and we are hostage to that. So we've kind of decided live on this pod, as we've kind of been talking about this, that this is definitely deserving of a 2-part episode. So we're gonna do a second part of this next week or next episode. That I want to actually talk for the next episode. I want to really get into some of the articles that are considered the stalwart pieces of literature about the anti-work movement that kind of inform a lot of the thought process. Because a lot of what we're talking about right now, and a lot of what we've been talking about through this episode, is kind of some of the contemporary philosophical conundrums that we kind of deal with. But there is a basis for these. So I think to end it, I do want to talk about the eight myths of work, which I think is a good segue into what we would be talking about next time. But just to put that on everybody's radar, because I again, like I said at the beginning, I don't want to gripe the whole time, and hopefully this doesn't feel like we're griping. I think a lot of people probably relate to this, but I do think there's room. There is, what's beautiful about this sub is it's a balance between the intellectual and the like kind of emotional of the topic, right?
And one more positive thing, because about the Chinese taking our jobs thing, because I also think about this a lot. I'm like, I don't want to live in China, and I think most people don't want to live in China under that regime. Yeah. Because if the deal is I go to China because China's now the new boss, and they make me work 24/7, and I'm not allowed to think, I don't want that, and I think most people don't want that. So the beauty of the American system, and it can be better, is that we have the freedom to think and create, and they don't there, or they don't seem to as much. They come and steal our ideas. So, what we have going for us is the freedom to be creative and to think and to come up with the next great thing. And if they're gonna, that's the one thing in that movie. I'm like, they can make glass for longer hours than us, but I don't know if they are gonna think of the next iPhone or, under the system of working as a slave, right? Because you don't have the time to then think of it. They could if they had the space, and maybe that's where they'll go in 50 years. But right now, I think we're still the leaders in creativity, which is exciting. And this is where you want to be.
Yeah, and I think that is under the assumption too that people value creativity, which I think that we can say that. I think here we can say that as three people who have are in some capacity working and contributing in the system of creativity. But my mom was a music teacher, right? Like I heard almost every year of the government essentially fundamentally starting to cut funding for music education.
Those bastards.
Every year, right? Because it was just a thing that was considered gratuitous, right?
Yeah.
And
the Bullshit Jobs article is great about this, talking about how society seems to have a diminishing need for people who actually contribute to the world in a positive way, like artists and actual people who provide real labor, like people who build things and grow things, and like a never-ending need of corporate lawyers. Never-ending need of people who do complete bullshit. It's interesting.
And I think part of the reason for that, I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but that kind of goes back to my injury, personal injury, you were in a car accident, call this lawyer,
Jacob and Ronnie.
My theory with that is that because of the recession, actually, this is like a crackpot theory that I actually need to kind of figure out, but I've always thought this is the recession from 2008, which we were just coming out of college when that happened. Dog and I think Freed, you were already out a couple years. Because of master's degree, he's getting a master's from ASU. Because of that time period, a lot of people went on to professional degrees. They went on to become lawyers. They went on to get masters and whatever. And we have an overabundance of lawyers, quite frankly, because so many people went to law school after or around that time period, because that was, for a long time, that was considered the right brain version of success. If you're left brain, you're a doctor. If you're right brain, you're a lawyer, right?
It was like adult braces. Yeah. It was like COVID in adult braces. Everyone's fixing their teeth during COVID. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Don't got to go out of the house. Good time.
I know what you're saying. So to close this one out, as I've alluded to 9 times throughout this pod, I know we keep going on these tangents. If you're new to this pod, this is what we do. So get used to it. But hopefully you got something out of it. Like I said, we're going to do a second episode on this next time, where we're going to talk a little bit more about the philosophy and kind of some of the contextual, so not even just philosophy, but what I love about these articles that we've kind of referenced over and over again, that we will again talk about next week, is some of that. One of them is from 1863. One of them is from 1932. The kind of contemporary one is from 2014. So this is not a new movement. This is not an anarchist movement. This is a bit of a Luddite movement, but really what it's about is going, this isn't right. Something's going on. I'm articulating my thoughts. So anyway, going to the article that we referenced earlier, which we will put in our subreddit for anybody who wants to check it out, or of course you can go to the subreddit our anti-work, but our subreddit is Did You Reddit? So the mythology of work. So 8 myths. I don't know when this came out in 2018. So 8 myths that keep your eyes on the clock and your nose in the grindstone. So the number one, work is necessary. So Dog, do you want to read through a little bit of each of these? I'll bring it up on my screen if that's helpful.
Yeah.
We don't have to read all of them, but just enough to kind of give a little bit of what it's really all about. So
I think, and we can kind of go through them kind of quickly. So work is necessary. Myth 1. Depends on what you mean by work. It's think about people who enjoy gardening, fishing, carpentry, cooking, just for their own sake. It's what if that kind of activity could provide for all of your needs? It's, oh man, I gotta understand this one.
So so this is, this is ultimately saying, so for hundreds of years, people have claimed that technological progress would soon liberate humanity from the need to work. Today, we have capabilities our ancestors couldn't even imagine, but those predictions still haven't come true. So it's essentially saying we have the things that would keep us from having to work. so the idea that it's still necessary for us to work is wrong, right?
Let's build a company that nobody has to work, but they still get paid. What? That should be our business plan.
Yeah, I get this one. This is like when we were all hunter-gatherers.
Totally. Like that was like
we all just sat around, apparently fucked everybody, and ate a bunch of saber-toothed tigers and slept. That's all we did. That sounds wonderful.
Wow.
Totally.
And everybody's like, well, this is a great line. We're told that life was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short back then. But that narrative comes from the ones who stamped out that way of life, not the ones who practiced it.
Yeah, Native Americans invented the Frisbee because they were chilling so much. Everyone knows that.
Yes, doy. Next one, work is productive. Work isn't productive. Work is destructive. Have you looked around? There are chopsticks, disposable chopsticks by the billions, dumpsters full of overstock, just entire swaths of land on Earth that is devoted to dumping our garbage. Amazon rainforest being burned is speeding up.
I was born with chopsticks, dude. My 2 fingers. Look at this. Bam! Why do I need to?
So that's a really interesting one because we forget that that's even a byproduct of this is the fact that you think about work and you think about what it does to like just you don't think of work enough through the byproduct of the environmental catastrophe that it is. Right?
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people think of work through the lens of like when I first read that, like work is productive. Like I was like, oh yeah, of course. I mean, work is obviously productive. That's the whole point. Is you're producing things.
Yes.
And then they're saying like, no. You're not producing things. You're destroying things to create new things.
And
it is not productive. It's destructive. Exactly.
And like when you look around at the kind of shit we make now, 99% of it is useless. So what we take for granted is that work doesn't produce value. It uses up value. Forests, polar ice caps, hours of our lives, the aches in our bodies when we come home from work parallel the damage taking place on a global scale, says the article. Next one, work creates wealth. Work creates poverty too, in direct proportion to profit, which is what we were talking about earlier. And there's this little cartoon here where these 2 fat guys, who are clearly the rich fat guys,
a couple of fat cats,
little fat cats with their cigars, and one of them's got, I think, like looks like he's got a little joint on the end of a joint stick. They look like they're just about to have tea and sandwiches, and there's a bunch of skinny, poor people holding their hats looking sad. Goodness, gentlemen, we can't all be billionaires. That would just be inflation. Really now, if anyone is to be rich, someone has to be poor.
This is actually almost verbatim the point I made earlier.
Yeah.
Which is, and like I said, I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm saying the system has created that mentality.
Exactly.
That now is unfortunately, like there is truth to this to some degree, but the truth to this is directly proportionate to the way that we value things, right? Like, so they're sitting in this like beautiful home, be like, well, if everybody was a billionaire, everybody'd be able to have a home like this. Be like, yeah, that's a fucking point, you idiot. Like,
yeah.
So that's a very interesting point. So, all right. So the next one. So you need to work to make a living. So, cost of living estimates are misleading. There's little living going on at all. Cost of working is more like it, and it's not cheap. So everybody knows that what house cleaners and dishwashers pay for being backbone of our economy. All the scourges of poverty, addiction, broken families, poor health, are par for the course. The ones who survive these and somehow go on showing up on time are working miracles, right? So the main point here is that we pay these. What's the topic is you need to work to make a living. The cost that we pay individually, but there's also a global price to pay for all the working alongside the environmental costs. There are the work-related injuries, etc. I mean, this is kind of broken window economics at its core, right? So there's another cartoon here. It looks like it's from Alice in Wonderland. So you see a quote from the Queen. It says, "A slow sort of country," said the Queen. "Now here, you see it. It takes all the running you can do to keep it in place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast. I'd rather not try, please," said Alice. So that's like that sums up a lot of the attitude I have towards like Silicon Valley, acting, all those things that people kind of move to cities for, where you go like, the only way you can make it done is you have to work twice as hard as everybody else. I go, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that,
Dude, that's just so sad.
Yeah. Yeah, so to end with that one, so why work? Why work if it's so expensive? Everybody knows the answer. There's no other way to acquire the resources we need to survive, or for that matter, to participate in society at all. All the earlier social forms that made other ways of life possible have been eradicated. They were stamped out by the conquistadors, slave traders, and corporations that left neither tribe nor tradition nor ecosystem intact. Contrary to capitalist propaganda, free human beings don't crowd into factories for a pittance if they have other options, not even in return for name brand shoes and software. So, this is basically just saying, this whole thing is that like, I would need to read it over again, but like, you kind of do need to work to make a living because of what they said, where so many things have destroyed the opportunity to make a living without working. Does that make sense? Like the
bro.
Trade.
It's fucking scary out there.
It's scary out there, y'all.
All right, Dog, you probably want to talk about that.
Work is a path to fulfillment. On the contrary, instead of enabling people to achieve happiness, work fosters the worst kind of self-denial. We're basically selling our time rather than doing things for our own sake, for their own sake. We come to evaluate our lives on the basis of how much we can get in exchange for them, not what we get out of them. As freelance slaves hawking our lives hour by hour, we think of ourselves as each having a price. The amount of the price becomes our measure of value. So we martyr ourselves for ideas, causes, love for one another, even when these are supposed to help us find happiness. Basically to sell our labor, sell our time, sell our like minutes and days and hours, blah, blah, blah of our lives in exchange for money. The next one, work instills initiative. People work nowadays, that's for sure, but trying to access the resources to market performance has caused unprecedented production and technological progress. Indeed, the market has monopolized access to our own creative capacities to such an extent that many people work not only to survive, but also to have something to do. But what kind of initiative does this instill? Like, that's not exactly inspiring. Like,
yes, that's the big one there is like, we get that it instills initiative, but like what initiative, and is it an initiative we even want?
Yeah. Right? And is it like a lot of people are just working because they need, like, it's not like out of wanting to do it. Like it's what you do.
You work because that's what means that's what predicates you being decent.
Yeah.
Work provides security. So this is another really, this is a tough one because again, resources provide security, and work is a way to get resources.
Yeah.
But that's the problem.
Yeah, that's it teaches you responsibility. Who carries out most of the injustices in history? Employees. This is not necessarily to say that they're responsible for them, as they would be the first to tell you. It doesn't teach you responsibilities at all. You just have to do exactly what you're told.
Right. Well, so, and then, I think that was the last one, right? Work teaches responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is an interesting piece. This is, like I said, this is a very, it's perspective gathering, right? It isn't necessarily something we haven't already talked about, but I think it's an interesting one through the lens. I think the environmental byproducts is, I think, one of the most interesting parts of this, right? Which is like, we all work so hard to create more problems within the earth that then unfortunately ends up more of a we have more problems because of it. We don't pay attention to the long term. We're just anyway. Okay, cool. Well, all right. Well, we're going to, like I said, we're going to continue more of this next week, where we're going to read a little bit more of kind of the foundational pieces. But yeah, so this is the beginning. If you want to pay attention, check out r/antiwork, where you can kind of see some of the memes and posts and some of the thought process. And yeah, you guys, any other clothing thoughts before we hang this one up before
Work
2021?
smarter, not harder.
Work smarter, not harder, or don't work at all.
Or don't work.
Smoke weed. Get a van.
Smoke weed every day. Also, Baba Vanga, look her up. She got some predictions for 2021, and I'm not going to say positive. I'm going to say scary as fuck, actually.
Oh God!
Did she have predictions for 2021? I didn't even see that.
Oh yeah, we'll put them on our Instagram today.
Can't wait.
But
looking forward to it.
I'm gonna go pee because I gotta burst my pants. So
I know
I'm gonna say goodbye.
Right, so this is Digi Reddit talking about anti-work. My name is It's Your Dad.
I'm Dog Boobs.
Every day, woo! Talk to you guys.
We'll be back next week in 2021 with more chat about the internet by way of Reddit, the front page of the internet. See you later.
Bye.